Yo, good day, good people. Welcome back to another episode of Adult Black Dad. It is me, I am your host, Marcus A. Smothers. It's been a while, so I'm glad that everybody's here streaming, whether you're with us here on Spotify, whether you're here with us on YouTube, whether you're here with us on Apple Music. I just thank everybody for taking a moment to tune in today just for another fire episode that I have getting ready to kick off and share. You know, right now we have just closed this election season and it's been very tense. It's been very tense everywhere. And I'm happy that this season is kind of over because you get to kind of breathe. You get to really breathe again, you know, with the advertisements on social media, on the TV, on the commercials, on the radio ads, all the sponsorship ads. It's just been a lot of toxic going on. And so now that hopefully a lot of that part of the election season is over, now we can just take a quick moment and just breathe. And as you breathe, I thank you for breathing with me on Adult Black Dad's episode. You know, real quick, I do want to just make one point about the election season. It's very interesting. You know, I was kind of in and out of my sleep to about 3 o'clock, just kind of watching, seeing what was going on in the morning. And today, my daughter, Leah, I picked her up from school. And, you know, I asked her, I was like, hey, did you catch up with the election, see how things were going about it? And I asked her how she felt about it. And she was like, I don't know, Dad. I don't really know how I felt or how I feel about it or how I should feel about it. I was like, well, just shoot it to me straight. What's going on with you? She made the very interesting comment that I thought was amazing. She said, I feel different now than I did on the last time. I was like, well, what do you mean? She was like, you know, last time when he was voted in, you know, I was in the second grade and I just used to hear all of these things that different people were talking about and it had me fearful. So I didn't know how to act. And she was saying now that she kind of understands more, she said two things. She said, I don't necessarily know if he's a good guy or a bad guy. She says she just doesn't feel like anyone who is a convicted felon should be able to be president. And I say, really? She was like, regardless of who you are, age, race, gender, different things like that, she felt like if someone was a felon, that they should not be able to be president at that moment. And I said, okay. I said, anything else? She said, you know, she said she felt fearful because she felt like if he did not win, that the situation that happened last time, she felt like things would have gotten even more violent. And, you know, I validated her opinions. I let her know that her opinions are her opinions. And she doesn't have to, for lack of a better word, justify how she feels because that's how she feels. And it's her feelings, you know, but she's in the 10th grade. She's on social media. She sees a lot of things, and that's how she felt, you know. So I just wanted to take a moment just to share, you know, kids see what they see, and from what they see, they create their own opinions, they create their own thoughts, and they create their own beliefs. So who am I to tell my daughter that she shouldn't feel that way or just not validate how she feels? So I was just happy in that moment that she felt safe to talk to me about how her feelings are, you know, post the election. All right. So let's transition in to this topic that I want to talk about on today. A few episodes ago, I made a comment and I talked about how we should not spend a lot of time comparing. And I think a phrase came up. I said comparison kills, and someone hit me up about that comment from the previous episode, and they asked me, it's like, you know, if you do another episode, I think you should dig on that comparison kills point. And I said, all right, let's do it. So if you are in the music field or if you listen to a lot of genres of music, there's a gospel Christian artist by the name of Jonathan McReynolds. And Jonathan McReynolds has this song titled Comparison Kills. And in that song, he's just talking about why we should not spend so much time comparing our lives to someone else's life, or comparing different things so much that we forget or we think the grass is greener on the other side. So I want to read a little snippet, a little bar. I want to read a bar from his song, and it says, "You spend all night admiring pictures. They make life look perfect, as they should. But you don't know the picture's story and how long it took to make it good." Now I'm gonna reverse that because it is an amazing part of the song. It says, "You spend all night admiring pictures. They make life look perfect, as they should. But you don't know the picture's story and how long it took to make it good." Now let that breathe for a minute as you think about that. The first thing I think about is Instagram and social media. We spend so much time admiring, swiping left, liking pictures, loving pictures, adding pictures to our story, looking at reels, sending reels to someone. I tell people sending reels is a love language. If you got a good reel and you're not sharing it to me, I question our relationship. But sending reels, and sometimes we look at these pictures so much, we think that's the reality of that person. But you don't know what Photoshop, you don't know what background, you don't know what crop, you don't know what lighting, you don't know all the other things that go into making that one picture look amazingly beautiful, that it grabbed your attention and it made you like it, or it grabbed your attention and made you share it, or it grabbed your attention and made you add it to your story because you felt like this picture was so good, I gotta share this with everybody else. But we don't know the realness behind what that picture costs to make it look good. And that's the thing with comparison. Sometimes we spend so much time comparing what we're doing in our own personal life that we don't move anywhere. You just stay in your same seat. You've been strolling, clicking, and liking for the past 30 minutes, and now it's an hour into it, and you haven't done anything. So let's dig a little bit more, because you know me, I like to get personal. I like to talk about my connections to a lot of these things. So first, I'm a teacher at heart. So we're talking about comparison. What is comparison? So when we are comparing is a consideration or estimate of two similarities or dissimilarities between two things or two people. So we are comparing how two things are alike or how they are different. Think of it as a balancing act. If you've ever been to the circus, you've seen them trying to balance two things, or balancing more than one thing at a time. Think about you trying to balance your life, but in other hand, you're trying to watch or balance someone else's life to the point where now you're so consumed with what they're doing, what you have is now going to waste, and you fumbled the bag, as we would say, because you're so in awe about what they have going on that you don't take time to cultivate what's going on in your hand. Now you're fumbling it. Now I will say this: comparing is a natural thing to do. If we do compare things, I'm not saying we should never compare things, because comparing is natural. It's human nature. But it can also lead to negative consequences. When is comparing good? Comparing is good if I'm learning from somebody. I can compare what I'm doing, and you might be an expert at this, and I might compare. You all know I love to run. Running is therapeutic. I am taking off work on Friday, the day after tomorrow, because I need to do a long run. I haven't done a long, life has been really crazy, and I need to take a day just to do a long run. And I know y'all like, he telling his job that he better take off to take a run. Yes, I love my job. My job is very big on mental health and personal awareness. I know personally I need to take a day to go for a run. So yes, big ups. I love my job. But in that, with me being a runner, I can have some runners who I look at and I compare what I'm doing to what they're doing because I want to grow. So when I'm looking at something because I'm trying to learn or gain some type of insight or maybe do something more innovative, it's okay for me to compare those two things because I'm really just trying to grow. I'm not necessarily trying to outperform or outshine you, or I'm not trying to look at what you're doing because I want to take you out. Now we've crossed the line with our comparison because now you're trying to take somebody out and compare them. So 3 things that we naturally compare throughout our lives, but we necessarily shouldn't. So I'm going to talk about these 3 things, and then I'm going to also talk about some 3 things that I struggle with comparing in my life, which I do. 1, your life journey. Everyone has their own specific journey that they have to take in life. From the day that you're born to the day that you die, your journey is your journey. I think about my daughters. All of my daughters, they all start here with me. They all start here with me. But each one of them, even though they're raised in the same home with majority of the same values, each one of them has their own unique journey that they have to take as they are growing up. And we used to say when kids grow up, they have a journey to take, but they have a journey to take as they are growing up. Just like our journey doesn't start when we get grown. Our journey starts the day we're born. The day we're conceived, our journey of life is starting. And so if I spend too much time comparing and trying to be like someone else, I lose the uniqueness of my own personal life's journey. Another reason why we should not compare is because it creates stress. It creates stress because you spend so much time trying to keep up with someone or something that you have defined as the standard. And sometimes we try to keep up with people because we see that they have a certain thing, but we don't know what it really costs for them to get that certain thing. You see the car, you see the nice rims on it, you see it's dripped out, but you don't know what it cost them to get that. You don't know what sacrifices they have made to get that car. Shoot, you probably can't even afford the maintenance on that car that you're looking at. So we might want a fancy type of certain car, but count up the cost. Can I even afford the oil change on that car? Can I afford the tires? Change again. Can I afford to put 93 gas in that car? Because every car does not take 87 from racetrack. You got to really put some really good high octane gas in that car to get the value out of that car. And the third thing it talks about is it creates resentment and or jealousy towards someone else because you're so fixated on what they have. You're so determined to get what they have. I want it. I got to get it. I got to go and I got to go. Wait a minute. I just sounded like Busta Rhymes. I got to get it and I got to go and I got to go and I got to get it. Because we spend that much time. Now you're jealous if you don't get it. And when you become jealous or enraged because this person has attained something that you cannot get, now you got a whole problem with this person and they don't even know you. Because you have a resentment or you're jealous towards what they have and you can't get it, or it's just not for you to have. But now you got a grudge against this person because of that. So those are just three natural things that we compare each other with, but we shouldn't do it. It's hard, that's why I said it from the beginning. It's a natural thing. It's natural to see someone else's life and start to compare it to your life and say, oh, I like that, I appreciate that, but don't get too caught up in it, because now you're going to lose your uniqueness, or you're going to start being stressed out because you're trying to obtain something that's not a realistic expectation for your life. And now, because you lose your own journey, you lose the uniqueness of your life, and now you're stressed out. Now you have resentment and jealousy towards somebody who don't even know you. So, all right, we're going to keep moving. I love to bring personal connections. Sorry for doing that on camera. I love doing personal connections because I feel like in most podcasts, we just have people talking about unrealistic things. I like to bring the authentic flair or to my life to this. And so I want to talk about three things that I struggle with as a man in comparing. Some of them have gotten better over the years, and some of them are still struggles to the day. So the first one is probably the most personal one, is comparing my manhood to what the world may say the standard of manhood is. And I say that like this because growing up, I was not like your typical guy. Like I played sports, but it wasn't my driving force. Like I was tall and I was put in basketball because I was tall. And I did it and I enjoyed it, but I still had a different flair about myself, or I had a different style about myself that wasn't necessarily the standard. Like I wasn't street. I wasn't raised in certain environments. I know about those environments. I grew up around those environments, but I can't sit here and say that, I was every day in that type of life of a struggle. And even the way I carried myself was a little bit different. And I struggled with that because I had guys compare me to other guys. I've had my manhood questioned growing up, my sexuality, my sexual preference questioned growing up, and even as I got older. I remember as I got older and I was in a job situation, and someone told me that they didn't feel like I was man enough for a certain role, that I didn't have enough as a man to do this particular role that was required. And that hurt me, because I think it hurt me, one, because it came from a man, and two, because it came from a black man. So I that was one of the first times that I had dealt with that sexuality thing crossed with another man challenging my sexuality. And he told me I wasn't black enough or stuff like that. I was like, whoa, what is going on? And so I've struggled with those things growing up in my life, and even now sometimes it makes me show up a certain way. I felt like I had to sometimes do even more. It made me chase relationships with women, chase relationships with young ladies, because I felt like I had to prove myself. Like if I had my roster, when we was in them streets, younger, we used to feel like we had to have a roster. You go to the mall, get them numbers, put them in your pocket. We comparing numbers. How many numbers you got? I don't know, bro. How many numbers you got? But I got it. As I got older, I did it in extreme, and it caused me to be in relationships and stay in relationships, even though they weren't healthy, because I wanted to keep saying that I had a roster, or I wanted to keep saying that I had this amount of females on my team. Another thing that, I was learned and I was taught growing up in manhood, I was taught this very early by my dad, is you never count another man's money. And in short, if you've never heard that, it means that you don't never get so concerned with what's in another man's pockets that you don't even appreciate or know what's in your own. So I've had a series of time in my life where I felt like I wanted to have a different type of car. I wanted to have a different type of lifestyle. And I would compare myself to other men that I saw who I felt were doing better than me in life. They were at a different financial bracket than me in life, or they were just doing better things at me in life. And I wanted that. Like, I really would like to chase that. Or like, how do you do this? And no, pause. I wouldn't ask how they would do it. I'm not even gonna lie and say I did that, because that would be me trying to learn. I would just admire, or nope, I can't say it was admire. I would be jealous and have resentment from afar. And that was just it, because I wanted what you had, even though I did not want to put in the work that you had. I didn't even want to know the work that you did to put into it. I just knew I wanted what you had. Now that's some real stuff right here on this podcast. I didn't even want to know what you was doing to get what you had. I just wanted it. I didn't want to put in the work. I'm too open and honest. I didn't want to put in the work. I just wanted it because it looked good. And that was me counting another man's money. Yeah, that was that. And that's just like some real open, honest type stuff. And another thing that we can get caught up in, myself, is comparing marriages or relationships, that you see another couple and you feel like, oh, I want what they got. That couple might look happy because they know how to put on a scene when they come out in the streets, but you don't really know what they go home and deal with. It was one of those things like, you would see a couple and they would get, every time you see them, I would take my wife and I, for example. You would see us sometimes and we would look real giddy, we would look real happy, we would just look like we just like best friends. But you don't know that conversation that we had all the way from the house to what we got here. The conversation we had at the house while we was getting dressed to getting in the car. I ain't opening the car, or I ain't opening the door for you today, because I don't want to talk to you about that right now. But from one time we got in that car to the time we pulled up outside to come in, that conversation was heated. We had some things going on. But when we get to you, smile and wave, boys. Just like Madagascar, smile and wave. And so people would say that they felt like, y'all got to... I ain't saying our relationship is trash, but I never want people to think that, we just all there, because that's not true. And then we spend so much time comparing what this couple may have, and I even do it, looking at what that couple, but you don't know what that couple deals with. You don't know if somebody's home cheating. You don't know if somebody's being abused. You don't know what that struggle could be going on with that couple. But we spend so much time admiring and comparing ourselves to these couples that we see on Instagram, Facebook. All that stuff is a scene. All of it is a scene. It's set up and it's framed in a way to make it look like it's reality, but it's not. So I have to be careful on how I compare how I raise my kids. I cannot compare my kids to other people's kids. I can't look at your child and say, man, your child look like they going to the league, or your child doing all these things, and now I'm finna go home yelling at, why you ain't doing this? Why you not doing that? First of all, as a parent, are you putting in the work that parent putting in to make sure that their child get there? Are you willing to make the financial sacrifices that it costs to get your child a trainer, to get your child a diet plan, to get your child a tutor? Are you making those sacrifices? Level 1 type stuff. Are you being your child's first tutor? Or are you being your child's first teacher? Before we do anything else that bring anybody else into the development of our children and our relationships, what are you doing at home base? That's what we have to ask ourselves first. If this is why we can't spend so much time comparing our lives to other people, because you will build resentment, you will be stressed out, and you will start to hate people. Comparison kills. Comparison kills your life journey. It kills your stress. It kills your creativity. It kills your manhood. It kills your womanhood. It kills. Comparison kills. And I really want to drive that in as I close this out for this episode. I want us to really take some time and focus on what we have with our lives. What can I do within my own circle to make things better? So that's your action steps. Take an examination of you and your situation. What can I put forward more to invest in what I say I want to do? Instead of comparing, how can I make some tangible changes and set some smart goals for my own life? And we're going to pick this up even more, and I'm going to end this on that. So again, I appreciate you all kicking with Dope Black Dad. When this episode drops, share it, like it, let everybody know about it. We're going to keep this moving until next time. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all, and I'm out.